High in the crystal towers of Sixelia orbiting the jewel suns of Altari 7, Princess Vexa held a priceless ceremonial blade that embedded itself in the wall mere centimeters from her latest suitor's head. The Drachnid ambassador's scales paled as he backed away, trembling. The 17th rejection this cycle ended like all others, with the princess's infamous temper on full display as royal guards escorted the terrified dignitary out. Her four armed handmaidens exchanged knowing glances while cleaning up the scattered remains of rejected courtship gifts worth more than entire human cities. The last royal heir of the Luminarian Empire collapsed into her hovering throne, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with irritation, revealing emotions her stoic face would never show. Rumors spread across 12 galaxies about her impossible standards, her coldness, her cruelty. Yet none saw how she spent her private hours obsessively studying transmissions from primitive Sol 3 humans. Fascinated her their fragility, coupled with reckless determination, their brief lives filled with such passion, such purpose, such contradiction. Her tentacled hand traced the outline of Earth on her private star chart, lingering there as the artificial night cycle began. The royal geneticist had declared all 17 suitors biologically optimal, their bloodlines impeccable, their resources vast, their political alliances advantageous to the empire, yet Vexa found each one more tedious than the last, perfect specimens of advanced evolution. Lacking anything resembling a spark, the Drachnid ambassador had recited poetry composed by artificial intelligence, specifically calibrated to appeal to her neurological patterns. The Morsidian Duke had offered her dominion over 30 star systems, rich with resources. The Quantum Collective had proposed a partial consciousness merge that would grant her access to the wisdom of 8 trillion connected minds. All logical choices, all painfully predictable, all unable to surprise her even once during their carefully orchestrated courtships. Rising from her throne, Vexa activated the hidden panel, revealing her forbidden collection of human artifacts, contraband materials. Her imperial guards would be executed merely for allowing aboard the station primitive books with actual paper pages, ancient musical instruments that required physical skill to play, rather than neural interfaces, recordings of human conflicts showing their chaotic, unpredictable battle strategies that defied the combat algorithms which had governed imperial warfare for millennia. Her most prized possession, a water painting created by human hands depicting an Earth ocean during storm conditions, a technique, crude, the proportions technically incorrect, yet somehow capturing the raw energy of natural chaos in ways imperial art with its mathematically perfect compositions never could. Vexa removed her ceremonial headdress, 14 kilograms of precious metals and living crystal organisms that broadcast her royal status, her neural patterns, her genetic purity to all Luminarian sensory organs within range. With the headdress removed, she became almost invisible to imperial surveillance systems, a trick discovered accidentally during childhood exploration of the palace. Forgotten security protocols, the princess slipped through hidden passages designed centuries earlier for royal evacuations during rebellion, emerging in the restricted xenobiology research sector, where humans were studied without their knowledge. The research director would face immediate disintegration if discovered sharing classified findings with anyone, even royalty. But his species owed ancient blood debts to Vex's ancestral line, debt that superseded imperial law, transcended potential punishment. His 3 primary eyes blinked nervously, secondary breathing membranes fluttering as she materialized within his private laboratory. The princess gestured impatiently toward his secured data crystals. They show remarkable adaptive capacity, most honored one. Despite their primitive technology, the research director whispered, his voice modulated to frequencies below imperial surveillance thresholds. Genetic tests reveal potential neural elasticity exceeding any known species. Cognitive evolution accelerated. Despite their brief lifespans, their social structures contain fascinating contradictions, simultaneous cooperation and competition, creating unpredictable innovation simulation cycles. They create art without function music, without mathematical precision stories, exploring impossible scenarios for no practical purpose, yet these seemingly wasteful activities appear to enhance their survival adaptability in ways our predictive models cannot quantify. The princess absorbed the data through direct neural interface, her auxiliary brains, stems processing information at speeds that would burn out lesser species' cognitive functions, something stirred within her ancient instincts, long suppressed by imperial genetic conditioning recognition of qualities. The empire had bred out of its citizens millennia ago qualities that might be needed again if the rumors from the Galactic Rim proved true rumors of something approaching something that had devoured older civilizations. Then even the Luminarian Empire, whispers of an enemy that fed on predictability perfection pattern, something that perhaps only chaotic, unpredictable humans might confound. Captain James Mercer dove behind the shattered remains of the Horizon's communication array plasma fire, scorching the bulkhead behind him. Interstellar diplomacy had gone spectacularly wrong. When pirates attacked the human vessel at the edge of Luminarian space, his diplomatic mission seemingly about to end, before it began barking orders to his remaining crew, he jury-rigged the emergency beacon using techniques no proper engineer would approve of, the kind of desperate improvisation humans excelled at. Against all probability, it warped their distress signal detected by a Royal Luminarian patrol, whose commander was so impressed by the humans' resilience against superior forces that instead of the standard refugee protocols, they were escorted directly to the Imperial Palace, supposedly for debriefing, though palace gossip suggested the ice-hearted princess had specifically requested their presence. After reviewing the patrol's report, James still wore bandages over plasma, burns his diplomatic uniform, replaced with borrowed alien garments, too tight in some places, too loose in others, standing out among the perfect beings of the court, like a wounded wild animal among manicured pets. His eyes, however, burned with undiminished curiosity, even as aristocratic luminarians whispered mockingly behind jeweled appendages. This was hardly the career path James had envisioned when he enlisted in Earth's diplomatic corps, a former military tactician reassigned after the Mars conflict, where his unconventional strategies saved thousands but violated direct orders from high command. Too valuable to court-martial, too unpredictable to trust with military command, the diplomatic course seemed the perfect compromise, utilizing his tactical mind while keeping him far from sensitive Earth operations. No one expected him to excel at diplomacy, yet his unorthodox approaches forged unlikely alliances with 3 previously hostile species before his 30th birthday, earning him command of the Horizon despite whispered concerns about his methods, his psych profile, his occasional disregard for protocol when situation demanded flexibility. The pirate attack puzzled him. Their weapons too advanced, their tactics too precise for common space raiders, targeting his ship, specifically disabling engines, weapons, communication arrays in sequence before attempting boarding. The crew repelled the first wave through sheer stubborn determination and creative use of the ship's artificial gravity systems. James personally neutralized 3 boarding parties using maintenance ducts and improvised weapons, keeping the pirates off balance through unpredictable movements, the kind of fighting no military academy taught, the kind learned in childhood street brawls and perfected in desperate situations where survival trumped rules, regulations, proper procedure. The Luminarian rescue raised more questions than answers, their patrol appearing moments after the pirates retreated, suspiciously perfect timing, their commander examining James with all 6 eyes in a manner suggesting evaluation, not mere rescue. The standard medical scans performed on the human crew lasted 3 times longer than protocol required, focusing oddly on neural patterns, genetic markers, stress responses. The diplomatic officer noticed these anomalies, said nothing, storing observations for later analysis. Certain now that this mission carried undercurrents unmentioned in his official briefing. Now standing in the Imperial antechamber, James catalogued potential exits, vulnerable points in Luminarian security systems, technological weaknesses he might exploit if necessary, old habits from military days never quite abandoned despite years of diplomatic training, his enhanced ocular implants, standard for all Earth diplomats, but carefully disguised as natural eyes recorded everything, analyzing luminarian body language, racial hierarchies, power dynamics among courtiers, identifying 7 distinct political factions competing within the imperial structure. Information Earth intelligence would consider priceless, though James suspected they knew more about this mission than they had shared. The borrowed luminarian garments concealed 2 important items: his diplomatic course medallion, containing emergency protocols, quantum entangled communications capabilities, and a small leather-bound book containing actual paper, something many spacefaring humans had abandoned centuries ago, filled with handwritten observations, poetry, sketches of alien worlds, personally meaningful items, violating official regulations against personal effects during diplomatic missions, yet essential to maintaining his humanity. His perspective. Amid increasingly alien environments, James touched the hidden book, briefly centering himself as the massive crystal doors before him began opening, revealing the imperial throne room beyond where destiny awaited. Though he would have laughed at such melodramatic thoughts, familiar with historical accounts of countless human representatives facing alien powers throughout centuries of space exploration, ordinary men, women, thrust into extraordinary circumstances, sometimes failing, sometimes prevailing, but always distinctly human in their capacity to adapt, overcome, persevere. The royal court's ceremonial chamber fell into shocked silence as Princess Vexa violated 1,000 years of protocol, physically dismissing her honor guard with an impatient gesture when they attempted to scan the human delegation for weapons. James had respectfully refused the scanning, citing ancient Earth diplomatic traditions he had entirely fabricated on the spot, a calculated risk that had either earned him immediate execution or the princess's attention. He discovered, which when Vexa's multifaceted eyes narrowed with what he hoped was amusement, not murderous intent. The human maintained eye contact, a taboo so severe several courtiers visibly fainted, while others activated emergency recording devices to document this historic breach of etiquette. Instead of punishment, the princess descended from her floating dais, crossing sacred floor patterns. No non-royal was permitted to tread upon, approaching the human, directly inhaling his unusual scent with sensory organs that could detect molecular compositions, emotions, genetic makeup, and recent dietary choices, all while James struggled to remember the 17 syllables of formal luminarian greeting he had practiced for weeks. The princess silenced him mid-word with a gesture, asking instead, in perfect, unaccented English, what he had learned to fight with such creative desperation against hopeless odds. The royal archivists would later record this moment as the unprecedented address, marking the first time in 17 generations that a luminarian royal had directly communicated with a lesser species without translation interfaces, ceremonial intermediaries, or psychic barriers. The princess's question hung in the air, like a living thing, imperial advisors frantically signaling James to prostrate himself as tradition demanded for any direct royal inquiry. Yet the human merely smiled slightly, his posture relaxed, his gaze unwavering, as he responded with equal directness. Necessity makes for an excellent teacher, Your Highness. When standard tactics fail, one must improvise or perish. The humans, surviving the attack, learned this principle in childhood, playing ancient games called sports where adaptation trumps predetermined strategy. Vexa circled the human, examining him from multiple angles, her secondary neural clusters processing unusual data patterns. This closed her advanced senses, detected subtle augmentations beneath his seemingly primitive exterior, enhanced neural pathways, ocular modifications, cellular resilience markers, suggesting deliberate genetic optimization hidden behind apparent fragility. Most intriguing, the princess thought a species that conceals strength rather than displays it, the opposite of luminarian evolution, where power must always be visible, hierarchically apparent. The court observers misinterpreted her prolonged examination as disgust, anticipating the human's imminent dismissal, punishment, possibly execution, for his continued failure to show proper deference. You fight like the ancient Krevnar, the princess finally declared, referencing an extinct warrior species whose unpredictable combat techniques had nearly defeated early luminarian expansion forces before their eventual subjugation. The comparison represented either grave insult or profound compliment. Depending on historical interpretation, James recognized the reference, having studied forbidden historical archives during transit to Luminarian space, the kind Earth intelligence claimed didn't exist, but provided anyway through back channels, the kind detailing Luminarian military weaknesses in case diplomacy failed, always prudent to understand both the official imperial history and the suppressed narratives of conquered peoples. Courtiers whispered frantically as James acknowledged the comparison with a respectful nod, a reaction suggesting knowledge no human should possess knowledge of imperial military history beyond permitted access levels. The princess's tertiary eyes briefly dilated, indicating surprise appreciation, perhaps something more complex, untranslatable to human understanding. She gestured toward a private antechamber reserved exclusively for royal audiences, with genetic equals, a space no non-luminarian had ever entered. The High Chancellor immediately protested, citing 17 separate laws forbidding such proximity between royal bloodlines and potentially contaminating species. The princess silenced him with a neural pulse that temporarily disrupted his speech centers, causing the ancient dignitary to collapse into embarrassed silence. Princess Vaxa's private botanical sanctuary contained species extinct everywhere else in the galaxy, its atmospheric conditions shifting every few meters to accommodate diverse life forms. No other alien had ever been invited here, yet James walked beside her as she deactivated lethal defense mechanisms with casual waves of her upper limbs. The diplomatic corps would have suffered collective cardiac arrest, knowing their junior captain discussed Earth's ancient military history with the heir to the greatest military power in charted space. Her questions revealed disturbing knowledge of human conflicts from Sun Tzu to modern orbital disputes. James realized the princess had been studying humanity far longer and more thoroughly than anyone suspected. Their conversation shifted when they reached the sanctuary's center, where impossibly Earth roses bloomed beneath alien suns. Vaxa revealed the truth behind her interest. Humans, alone among contacted species, still fought with hopeless courage against superior forces, still valued honor above advantage, still created art and music. Even while struggling for survival qualities her people had lost across millennia of unopposed dominance, the diplomatic mission's true purpose became clear. Humans weren't being evaluated for trade, but as potential allies against something terrible approaching from intergalactic space, something that had already destroyed civilizations far more advanced than humanity, something that fed on predictable logical perfection that the chaotic human mind might uniquely resist. Reaching toward an Earth rose the princess's tentacled appendage, hesitated millimeters from contact. James noted her reluctance, understanding intuitively what she could not express directly. Royal protocol forbade physical interaction with non-indigenous biological material without protective barriers, sterilization procedures, countless safety measures. He made a decision that violated every diplomatic guideline, every cultural briefing. Carefully reaching out, he picked one perfect bloom, offering it to her directly. The transgression monumental, the meaning unmistakable. The sanctuary's automated defense systems immediately activated, targeting the human for his presumption. Vaxa countermanded with a neural override, accepting the flower with trembling appendages, her bioluminescent markings shifting through colors no human eyes could fully perceive, emotions no human language could adequately name. My royal geneticists would require 17 decontamination cycles if they witnessed this moment, she said, her translator implants struggling to convey the complex humor beneath her statement. Primary neural scans indicate this flower contains 14 distinct microorganisms, native to Earth's soil, potentially hazardous to imperial biology. Yet here I stand, willingly contaminated by human, offering the symbolism will not be lost on my intelligence services, who undoubtedly monitor us despite my privacy protocols. James smiled, understanding far more than she expected. The diplomatic course had thoroughly briefed him on Luminarian cultural symbolism, particularly regarding biological exchange. Accepting unsterilized organic material represented trust, vulnerability, perhaps something deeper in royal contexts, traditional prelude to genetic compatibility assessment. The conversation moved beyond formality as they continued through shifting biomes. James describing Earth's natural wonders, the princess sharing memories of worlds long destroyed by imperial expansion, now preserved only within her sanctuary millennia of habitable planets, reduced to carefully maintained specimens, biological informations stored in imperial databases, evolutionary history, catalogued, categorized, sterilized. She spoke of growing emptiness within imperial culture, technological perfection, without purpose, genetic optimization, without direction, expansion, without meaning. James recognized loneliness beneath her words, isolation unique to one born into ultimate power, yet constrained by tradition, expectation, evolutionary stagnation. Your species changes so rapidly, Vexer observed, examining human historical records displayed across floating screens. Your nation's philosophies, technologies, constantly evolving, demolishing, rebuilding, challenging established patterns, reinventing yourselves across mere centuries, while my people have maintained essential genetic stability for 50,000 years. Perfect adaptation, reaching inevitable conclusion, unable to continue adaptive cycles necessary for true evolutionary advancement. Your imperfections, your flaws, create innovation possibility, change the enemy approaching from dark space, consumes perfection, feeds on predictability, assimilates completely optimized species into its expanding mass, destroying all individuality, all randomness. Humans remain tantalizingly unpredictable, therefore potentially immune. The Empire studies you constantly, James replied, understanding finally the true purpose behind countless seemingly random interactions between humans and imperial representatives throughout decades of limited contact, the surveillance, monitoring, experimentation. We have wondered why such an advanced civilization would show interest in our primitive technologies, our chaotic societies. Now I understand we are not potential trade partners, but potential weapons. Our unpredictability, our adaptability qualities. Your people have evolved beyond qualities that might prove essential against something that consumes predictability. The royal consort selection ceremony transformed into chaos when 6 simultaneous explosions rocked the imperial palace's foundation. Electromagnetic pulses disabled security systems, quantum shields, collapsed. Assassins from 5 competing species materialized through the disrupted defensive grid, targeting not just the princess, but all central command structure of the Empire. James reacted before conscious thought, detecting the familiar resonance of cloaking technology Earth intelligence had warned might have been sold to hostile powers. A human diplomat becoming warrior. In an eye blink, his concealed monoblade flashing as he intercepted the first assassin, reaching the princess seconds before the others, breaching her disabled personal shield, tackling her to safety behind an overturned ceremonial altar. As death beams crisscrossed the chamber, royal guards faltered against the unexpected coordinated attack. But Vaxa revealed her own hidden strength, centuries of combat training required of all royal heirs fighting back to back with the human, their disparate styles, somehow complementing perfectly her controlled energy manipulation, his unpredictable adaptive strikes. When reinforcements finally secured the chamber, the sight that greeted them became instantly legendary throughout the Empire. The princess and human standing amid fallen attackers, wounded, bleeding, various colors, yet unbowed, her royal tentacles intertwined with his fingers in the ancient Luminarian warrior's bond, performed spontaneously, without conscious intent, creating biochemical links that imperial scientists had believed impossible between different species. Imperial security forces swarmed the chamber, securing perimeters, establishing quarantine fields around the fallen assassins, genetic analysis immediately revealing connections to rival houses, ancient enemies, isolationist factions, all opposed to human Luminarian cooperation, all fearing change that might disrupt carefully maintained power structures. The attack, unprecedented in its coordination, precision, technological sophistication, suggesting infiltration at highest security levels, perhaps indicating something worse. James recognized pattern-matching technology, similar to what Earth intelligence suspected the dark space entity employed, realized with growing horror that the attack carried hallmarks of external influence, the enemy already here here already manipulating events from within the scene around them continued unfolding with surreal clarity time, seeming to slow as battle stimulants, pumped through his augmented system, heightening perception awareness, combat capabilities, hidden modifications, activating emergency protocols. The most immediate threat, however, wasn't external, but Vexa herself, her neural implants, malfunctioning from electromagnetic damage, releasing uncontrolled energy pulses through her nervous system, her royal biology entering critical cascade failure. James recognized symptoms from emergency briefings on Luminarian physiology, understood that standard imperial medical protocols would require minutes to implement time she didn't have, making decision that would later be analyzed, debated across worlds. He activated restricted Earth technology embedded within his skeletal structure, technology officially prohibited in imperial space nanoscale medical systems designed for emergency field treatment of critical wounds. The microscopic machines, pouring from his palm into hers through their still intertwined appendages, overriding her failing implants, stabilizing neural pathways, preventing cascading biological failures. Imperial guards watch in shock horror fascination as visible silver threads spread from human to princess, crossing species barriers, merging incompatible biologies, creating something new, something unprecedented, as nanomachines adapted, reprogrammed themselves, integrating with Luminarian cellular structures, the warriors' bond between them deepening, transcending ordinary physical connection, becoming symbiotic conduit through which data, energy, consciousness flowed freely. James experiencing millennia of royal memories, Vexa receiving compressed human experiences, emotions, instincts, the exchange overwhelming neural systems, threatening shared unconsciousness, yet somehow strengthening both, neither fully understanding what transpired between them. Ancient Luminarian texts mentioned theoretical possibility of transcendent bond occurring between perfectly matched genetic pairs, never before witnessed between different species, definitely never involving artificial augmentation, nanoscale technology, forbidden biological interchange. Imperial medical teams arrived prepared to separate them forcefully, if necessary, halting in confusion as their diagnostic systems revealed impossible data readings, hybrid structures forming between incompatible species, healing occurring at cellular, molecular, quantum levels. Princess Vexa recovered consciousness, first her multiple eyes focusing with new clarity, perception altered, enhanced through integrated human neurological patterns. James' humanity, she whispered, her voice containing harmonic undertones recognizable only to him, containing meanings beyond ordinary language. What have we become? Neither fully understood, but both recognized fundamental transformation bond that transcended intended purposes, emergency measures becoming permanent alteration, awakening dormant genetic potential within both species, potential perhaps deliberately suppressed by evolutionary controls, ancient manipulations designed to prevent exactly this kind of unpredictable emergence. Deep beneath the imperial palace, in medical chambers reserved exclusively for royal bloodlines, Princess Vexa experienced James' memories, his consciousness, his entire existence through the spontaneous bond their shared combat had triggered, while imperial scientists frantically sought ways to sever the unprecedented connection. James experienced millennia of royal history, biological knowledge, technological understanding, cultural context, downloading into his mind faster than any human brain was meant to process, both hovered near death for 9 cycles, connected by glowing tendrils of energy, while the empire held its collective breath. Imperial succession, thrown into uncertainty, 5 separate religious factions declared the bond either sacred prophecy or abominable heresy. Genetic purists demanded the princess's sterilization, while revolutionary factions celebrated potential change. Black market betting pools placed odds on survival rates, genetic compatibility, and whether the human's head would eventually explode from containing Luminarian consciousness when they finally awoke, simultaneously gasping for breath in perfect synchronization. Neither was unchanged, the princess now understanding human emotions in all their messy complexity, James comprehending the existential threats facing not just the empire, but all ordered life in the galaxy, both now sharing knowledge of the true enemy approaching from dark space. Neither species alone could possibly survive. Imperial geneticists monitored the unprecedented changes occurring in both beings' cellular adaptation, quantum field alignments, neurological restructuring, biological systems, previously thought incompatible, now functioning in harmonious integration. The nanomachines James had deployed continued their work, evolving beyond original programming, developing new functions, rewriting genetic code to facilitate communication between disparate biologies. The princess's royal blood containing properties that supercharged the tiny machines, creating hybrid structures neither fully luminarian nor human, something entirely new. Senior scientists speaking in hushed tones about evolutionary leaps, symbiotic emergence, theoretical constructs previously relegated to ancient myths, legends, now manifesting before scanning instruments, recording devices. Within isolation chamber, the pair recovered faster than projected, their minds partially merged, their bodies transforming, neither fully conscious of where individual identity ended. Collective consciousness began. James discovered abilities previously impossible for humans, manipulating energy fields, perceiving quantum fluctuations, accessing luminarian knowledge through instinctive neural pathways, the princess experiencing emotional responses previously unknown to her species, crying, laughing, feeling primal instincts suppressed through millennia of evolutionary engineering. Imperial monitors recorded her speaking archaic luminarian dialects extinct for thousands of years, accessing ancestral memories, genetic knowledge preserved in royal bloodlines, but normally inaccessible even to those carrying the heritage. Impossible, the chief geneticist whispered, reverent voice echoing through monitoring chamber, observing transformation beyond scientific explanation. The mythical transcendence, long dismissed as religious superstition, royal propaganda, statistical impossibility, happening before incredulous scientific observers. We witness biological communication across incompatible species, barriers, spontaneous genetic optimization, adaptive radiation, occurring within single-generation changes that should require millennia of evolution, happening within days within individual organisms, defying established principles of biology, physics, temporal progression. Beyond medical concerns, political turmoil spread throughout imperial systems, ancient royal houses withdrawing support, pledging allegiance to secondary successors, emergency councils convening to discuss potential removal of Princess Vaxa from succession, designating the unprecedented bond, biological contamination, legal grounds for disqualification. Religious interpretations varied wildly across imperial worlds, some declaring transcendent evolution, divine manifestation, others demanding purification through immediate termination. Ancient texts consulted, prophecies re-examined, historical precedents debated, while power structures trembled, security forces divided, uncertain where loyalties should lie, when royal succession itself appeared threatened by unpredictable change. Within isolation chamber, Vaxa sensed these political machinations through royal implants still partially functional despite transformation, moving closer to James, seeking comfort through physical proximity, the bond between them strengthening with each passing moment, each shared breath, each synchronized heartbeat. She placed tentacled appendages against his face, initiating deeper connection protocol reserved for royal mates never before shared with alien species. I must be prevented from separating us. She communicated directly into his consciousness, the images, emotions, concepts transferring without language limitation. They seek to break our bond, fearing what we have become, what we represent, what we might become together. Tell me, James Mercer of Earth, would your people accept us more readily than mine? Humans have warred against differences, genetic, political, ideological, throughout your history. Would they embrace transcendent evolution or destroy what they cannot understand? Emperor Zix's massive central command carrier emerged from hyperspace above Earth, unannounced, unchallenged. 20,000 years of imperial military might poise to obliterate humanity's homeworld if negotiations failed. Paranoid Earth defense systems targeting the vast vessel as planetary evacuation protocols activated, knowing resistance against such technology was futile. James and Vaxa stood on Earth's primary diplomatic platform, the princess wearing modified human clothing, her royal insignia deliberately minimized, appearing humbler than any royal had ever been seen. The emperor himself materialized before world leaders, his true physical form revealed rather than the traditional avatar used with lesser species' expression unreadable to human eyes, but speaking volumes to his daughter, the confrontation generations in the making, not about human luminarian relations at all, but about the princess's unprecedented defiance of imperial isolation policies. She proposed revolutionary integration of compatible species sharing, of restricted technologies, cultural exchange, military cooperation, all anathema to imperial doctrine, all essential for survival against the approaching threat, the emperor revealing the true reason behind his opposition, not contempt for humans, but fear of changes that might destabilize an empire already showing cracks beneath its perfect exterior, fear of losing his daughter to what he perceived as primitive savagery, fear most of all that she might be right. You have no conception of what you propose, daughter. The emperor's multi-tone voice resonated across quantum frequencies, only partly translatable to human hearing systems. The integration you suggest risks everything our ancestors built across millennia of careful genetic cultivation, technological development, social engineering. He gestured toward Earth, visible through atmospheric shields of fragile blue marble suspended in darkness. They are children playing with forces beyond their comprehension, their history filled with warfare, self-destruction, primitive aggression, their minds barely evolved beyond their simian ancestors. How can you propose sharing imperial knowledge with beings who would inevitably use it against themselves, against others, against us eventually? Vaxa stood unmoved by imperial rhetoric, the bond with James providing stability against her father's overpowering presence, her memories filled now with human perspective, understanding how imperial propaganda had shaped her thinking throughout centuries of careful conditioning. Father, she responded using formal address, violating protocol, by speaking directly without ceremonial intermediaries. Our enemy is not humanity, but our own stagnation, our perfect predictability, our inability to adapt. The dark space entity consumes ordered patterns, predictable responses, perfect civilizations, precisely what we have become with such pride, precisely what humans have not. James felt terror beneath the emperor's perfect composure, understanding through shared consciousness with Vaxa that Zix had witnessed firsthand the dark space entity's destruction, encountered a refugee civilization, fled across intergalactic void centuries before bearing warnings that haunted imperial nightmares. Ever since the emperor had dedicated millennia to preparing defenses, building weapons, developing countermeasures, yet knowing logically, mathematically, that luminarian civilization remained vulnerable precisely because of its perfect ordered nature, the very predictability that made their technology society governance function so efficiently made them perfect prey for the approaching horror. The emperor had concealed this knowledge from his own people, fearing panic, chaos, potential collapse of imperial order. They detected your preparations, Father. Vaxa continued, knowing her words struck deeply against imperial pride, against her father's lifelong dedication. All your perfect defenses, the quantum barriers, dimensional anchors, realities, stabilizers, cataloged, analyzed, countered before deployment. The entity learns, adapts, incorporates, absorbs perfection. Your simulations confirm this. You'd have calculated our chances of survival against dark space and found them insufficient. Why else would you authorize my research into human unpredictability, authorize observation, experimentation, interaction, permit diplomatic missions, genetic comparability studies, approve clandestine neural mapping of human cognitive patterns? Earth's human leaders watched in bewilderment as father-daughter engaged in conversation beyond translation capabilities, beyond human comprehension, yet James understood everything through their bond, translating, transmitting information directly to Earth defense networks, finally revealing truth behind decades of mysterious luminarian interest, inexplicable technological gifts, targeted scientific assistance. The Empire had been preparing humanity not as trade partners, but as potential saviors, understanding that chaotic, unpredictable human minds might resist dark space assimilation, might disrupt the entity's perfect patterns, might introduce sufficient randomness to destabilize its consuming patterns. The Human Luminarian Cultural Exchange Program transformed both societies with remarkable speed. Earth scientists worked alongside Imperial engineers, developing hybrid technologies, combining luminarian precision with human intuitive leaps, while Princess Vaxa and James traveled between worlds. Their unprecedented bond deepening through shared experiences, shared dangers, shared quiet moments beneath unfamiliar stars. Imperial citizens witnessed their princess wading into Earth oceans, laughing with genuine joy as waves crashed around her, experiencing chaotic, unpredictable nature. After millennia of sterile perfection, humans observed James absorbing luminarian knowledge, developing abilities no human had possessed, mastering technologies previously incomprehensible to human minds, both becoming something new together, something that transcended their original species. Resistance arose on both sides: religious fundamentalists, corporate interests, military hardliners, all fearing change, all plotting to maintain separation, culminating in simultaneous assassination attempts on 12 different worlds, targeting anyone supporting integration. Hundreds died, including several of James' original crew and members of Vex's personal guard. The attacks achieved the opposite of their intended effect, as outraged citizens of both species demanded justice, protection, stronger alliance, seeing in the peace-seeking victims martyrs to a greater cause than species purity. Integration accelerated as joint scientific teams made breakthrough discoveries. Nanomachine colonies, originally deployed to save Vex's life, evolved further, becoming interfaces between incompatible biologies, allowing limited bonding between volunteer humans. Luminarians creating hybrid consciousness networks. Preliminary resistance testing against simulated dark space patterns showed promising results. Chaotic hybrid networks demonstrating significantly higher resilience against entropic assimilation than pure luminarian neural structures. Emperor Zix himself reluctantly authorized expansion of integration protocols, while maintaining careful distance. Public skepticism gradually recognizing potential advantages of partnership with primitive yet unpredictable allies. James and Vexa spent precious moments between diplomatic missions in Earth's natural wilderness regions, experiencing together a sensation of rain falling on skin, breathing unfiltered air, hearing natural sounds, their bond transferring experiences, emotions, perceptions across species barriers, allowing each to truly understand how the other perceived existence. The princess developing profound appreciation for chaotic beauty, unpredictable patterns, emergent complexity that characterized Earth environments, while James absorbed comprehension of multidimensional mathematics, quantum field manipulation technologies beyond human development. Without their guidance, the princess touching ancient trees with reverent appendages, feeling life energy flowing through natural systems so different from the perfectly engineered environments of imperial worlds, discovering emotional responses previously unknown to her species, sense of belonging, connection to evolutionary origins long suppressed by imperial conditioning. The transformation extended beyond physical changes affecting culture, art, philosophy, as human chaos theory influenced luminarian architectural designs, introducing asymmetry, unpredictability, aesthetic irregularity into previously perfect structures. Imperial music, incorporating human emotional themes, harmonies, dissonance, creating new art forms that expressed combined consciousness experiences. Luminarian mathematical precision, enhancing human medical technology, transportation systems, communication networks, while Earth environmental engineers helped imperial worlds rediscover natural biosphere development, reintroduce evolutionary processes long artificially controlled. Resistance persisted, however, growing more desperate as integration advanced. Isolationist factions on both sides, recognizing inevitable loss of species purity, cultural identity, viewing hybrid society as existential threat. Sabotage attacks intensified despite increased security. New technologies demonstrating concerning sophistication, suggesting continued dark space infiltration manipulation. James perceived pattern, recognizing signature energy fluctuations, learning through Vex's ancestral memories to identify quantum distortions indicating external influence, understanding with growing horror that the enemy had already established beachheads throughout both human luminarian territories, inserting agents' influence long before open contact, encouraging species conflict precisely to prevent cooperation, their greatest potential threat. The intergalactic anomaly emerged from dark space earlier than predicted, its incomprehensible structure defying analysis, consuming entire star systems, ancient civilizations, falling silent as the entropy wave approached. United Fleet gathered at dimensional choke point Terran vessels alongside Luminarian warships, thousands of smaller craft from dozens of allied species, once bitter enemies, now final line of defense. James and Vexa, commanded from the newly constructed hybrid vessel Convergence, its technology neither fully human nor Luminarian, but something entirely new, born from both traditions. The princess, no longer merely royal heir, but spiritual symbol of cooperation. The human, no longer diplomat, but living bridge between species. Their bond, now replicated thousands of times among compatible species pairs, creating neural network of shared consciousness. Unprecedented in galactic history, the enemy attacked with weapons that violated physical laws, unmaking reality itself conventional defenses useless against such power. The final solution required sacrifice. The bonded pairs, channeling combined consciousness through the convergence vessel, creating quantum resonance that countered entropic dissolution. James and Vexa, at the center of the psionic web, their physical forms dissolving as they directed the collective consciousness of two civilizations united. Emperor Zix, watching from Imperial command, as his daughter and her human consort transcended physical existence, becoming living embodiment of cooperation. The enemy faltered for the first time in its eternal existence, confronted with something it could not consume, could not understand, could not predict. The anomaly retreated, wounded, diminished, leaving behind transformed space and transformed peoples, neither fully human nor Luminarian, but something new, something powerful, something born of the most unlikely connection between an alien princess and the human who had truly captured her heart. The transformation radiated outward across galaxies, quantum entanglement, extending the hybrid consciousness beyond physical limitations, those witnessing the event unable to comprehend fully what they observed as James and Vexa's merged consciousness expanded, incorporating volunteers from multiple species, creating unified field of cooperative intelligence, without surrendering individual identity, achieving balance between order and chaos, structure and freedom, precision and improvisation, qualities that separately had proven vulnerable to dark space assimilation, yet combined created resistant pattern the entity could neither predict nor consume. Emperor Zix himself, volunteering, joining the expanding consciousness field, feeling for the first time in millennia of existence the raw emotional experiences of other beings, understanding finally what his daughter had discovered among humans, depth of connection impossible within rigid hierarchical structures of imperial society. Dimensional rifts, closed quantum stabilizers, reinforced reality itself, healing as hybrid consciousness extended protective patterns throughout threatened systems. The dark space entity retreating, seeking easier prey, discovering to its horror that quantum resonance followed, pursued extended protection to previously vulnerable civilizations, expanding alliance network, strengthening bonds between formerly isolated species, creating sustainable resistance pattern that would continue expanding beyond current conflict. The victory not destroying an ancient enemy, but transcending limitations that had made civilizations vulnerable. Separation, division, imposed hierarchies, enforced uniformity. As battle concluded, physical forms gradually reconstituted, most participants returning to separate existence, though fundamentally changed forever, carrying memories, experiences, perceptions from other species, understanding that transcended language, cultural barriers, evolutionary differences. James and Vexa, however, remained partially merged, their consciousness extending beyond physical limitations, becoming living bridge between worlds, between realities, their physical forms manifesting differently depending on environment, observer, cultural context, appearing human among humans, Luminarian among Luminarians, something entirely new when viewed by those with expanded perception. Ancient Luminarian prophecies, once dismissed as primitive superstition, revealed new meanings, speaking of transcendent evolution, emergence of connected consciousness that would unite divided species against cosmic entropy. Emperor Zix officially recognizing James as royal consort, establishing new dynasty, neither human nor Luminarian, but evolutionary bridge between past-future united species hybrid cultures, declaring annual celebration across 1,000 worlds, commemorating transformation unity understanding that would continue expanding, influencing, evolving beyond current generation, beyond current universe, perhaps reaching through dimensional barriers across multiverse, potential transcending limitations of physical existence.